and I want to welcome you to Horrorhound and to the Independent Filmmakers panel. I've got some housekeeping that I want to do, and then we're going to talk to our filmmakers, so please bear with me, okay? We've got some wonderful people with us today, and we've had some wonderful people with us before. This is the 7th Indie Filmmaker panel, and I do want to thank all of those that have been with us, as well as our guests. We've had Lloyd Kaufman, Albert Pune, Lucas Hassel, Lou Simon, Jeremiah Kebb. They've been wonderful, and we really appreciate them. We've got a few things to go over real quick, though. Let's get the rules clear. No sexism, no racism, and no homophobia. That's you guys too, okay? All right. I can and will interrupt anytime if I need to. If you're droning on, you're embarrassing yourself, we can't hear you, or it's just time to get going. There may be children present, so I'm going to try to watch my filthy mouth, and I hope you guys do too. But this is horror, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not your babysitter, and I'm not your mama. If you like my shirt and you want to be a horror junkie too, please see Dead Ink Apparel and tell Justin that I sent you. Thank you, Justin. The views, opinions, jokes, and otherwise word vomit that is expressed on this stage does not necessarily represent me, Horrorhound Film Festival, or your mom. Everybody is responsible for their own words. Make sure you like them. Now this said, remember, it's horror. We're here to talk about the ghastly things, the difficult stuff, the things that the normies don't really want to acknowledge, but it's there anyway. So there's your trigger warning. I'm sorry, it might get sticky, but we're all here together. We're going to talk today about dealing with difficult subjects. Rape, murder, torture, bad things against little kids, those kinds of stuff. If for any reason you need to exit, we understand, I understand. Sometimes dealing with these difficult subjects and watching these difficult new movies is how we cope with the bad things that have happened. So just know you've got a family here in Horror. Now, there's your disclaimer, there's your trigger warning. Without further ado, how about we get traumatized? How about you get that? All right, gentlemen, we're going to pick on them a little bit today. You notice something fun here with our 7th panel? We've got all white dudes. That's the first time that's ever happened. Usually we have a color spectrum going on up here. We've got whatever gender you feel like identifying with today. I'm not your doctor, so I don't care. You know? So we're going to pick on you guys a little bit, because throughout history, most of the murdering, most of the mischief making, most of the money making has been done by white guys. Now, I'm not going to pick on you for that. However, we have to look at the other side of it. That often those of us who identify as minorities in one way, shape, or form, we were able to get, as women, the right to vote because we had male allies. President Lincoln was a white dude. There are a lot of white guys that are doing a lot of good things for a lot of different colored people of various everythings. So, if you're being good and you're helping out, thank you, because you've got more power than a lot of us do. And if you're being a jackass, stop. Gentlemen, we're going to go down the line here. Introduce yourself, say what your movie is, when your movie's playing. If it's already been here, it's already played, let us know when we can see it again, okay? All right, thank you. You start first, sweetheart.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am Colin Denhart. My film Halloween Cat just screened next door at 11 o'clock, but you can watch it on Vimeo pretty shortly.
Hey everybody, my name is Vincent DeSanti. I directed the Friday the 13th fan film Never Hike Alone. We're going to be screening today at 5 o'clock after the Kane Hodder documentary, and you can actually catch it on YouTube right now on our YouTube channel at walksonfilms.com. And yeah, I'll pass it on to him.
I'm Adam Mark. By the way, you all need to go and watch this movie like immediately. Like see it today and then watch it on YouTube so it gets more counts on YouTube because it deserves it. It's a terrific movie. I have some knowledge in that area. I wrote and directed Jason Goes to Hell on Final Friday. Thank you. I also wrote Texas Chainsaw 3D with my beautiful writing partner and wife right there, Deborah Sullivan. So immediately, we've already got some inclusiveness, and the other film that was screened here, because they screened Jason Goes to Hell last night at the IMAX Theater, they screened my new film, Secret Santa, which, again, my wife, Deborah, is one of the leads of. She co-wrote it, co-produced it with me, and my other producing partner, Brian Sexton, who is gay, who couldn't be with us today, because he's setting up our next movie. And so if you want to see the movie again, it's going to be coming out in December. We are actually on a flight at 6 o'clock this afternoon to London Fright Fest, where we're showing it in London tomorrow.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Safe travels, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name's Bill Fulkerson. I'm not nearly as interesting as him, but I'm one of the co-directors of the documentary Survival of Film Freaks, which is playing tomorrow at 11 a.m. next door. It's the world premiere. It's never been screened publicly, other than my family. I also like myself. It's a documentary about cult films and the technology of cult films and kind of where they were, where they've been, where they're going to go, and also it's a big thing saying like taking care of independent filmmakers to continue it going on. So.
I'm Kyle Cook, I'm the other co-director of that, and you already got all the information from Bill. So I just wanted to say I like the In the Mouth of Madness costume in the crowd. There you go, yeah.
Hi, I'm Dan Dillard. My film is Pigman. It's a little independent short, which was based on a nightmare that my wife had, who was pointing a cell phone, taking pictures of me. That's Stephanie right there. And it shows tonight at 8 o'clock.
Nice. Nice.
My name's Tim Altone, and I produced Strange Tales from Appalachia, and I wrote and directed the Man vs. Ghost segment, short film in it, and it plays tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you to your teams. It sounds like most of them are very diverse teams, and we do appreciate you. We appreciate the work and sacrifice that goes into what you do, because this is independent film. So for the most part, people have day jobs that they've got to deal with. Now, we're going to talk about the difficult things. How do you handle talking with your cast and your crew when it comes to having to show rape scenes or recreate, whether it's recreate something that actually happened or put a new spin or something, create something new that is heinous?
Okay. God, how do we talk to our cast and crew about it? That's interesting. I think the only real issue I've ever found with actors, because horror movies are horror movies, there's almost always a ton of nudity. That seems to be just a thing, part of the calling card, especially in the slasher genre. Where truly, I'm not kidding, when I did Jason Goes to Hell, I was told every 7 minutes I had to have a new kill, and every 7 minutes I had to have a fresh pair of breasts in 3.5-minute intervals. I'm not kidding, that's actually what I was told. By the way, Jason Goes to Hell is the only Friday the 13th movie to have as much male nudity as female nudity. I had to fight for that. We had the first, what is perceived as gay kiss in the entire franchise. I am still getting into fights about that. But here's the thing, I'm always much more embarrassed by nudity on set than the actors ever are. The actors are like, yeah, where do we go? And I'm like, I just want to be sensitive to your needs. And it's amazing because they never have a problem with it. We're the ones who feel like idiots. So I almost feel like the actors have to talk to me about that part of it. But when it comes to sensitive subject matter, I think that comes through mostly in discussions about the script. I think those issues are usually there. And if you're gonna, look, here's the thing. Horror movies, our job with horror, and your job as horror fans, okay, is that we're the envelope pushers, guys. Like, we're the ones who always push where the line is, which I think is really important and really good, but we better be saying something when we do it. So to have rape in a movie just to have rape in a movie is disgusting. Like, what is that? That's some kind of sick porn stuff. I mean, that's awful. If you're gonna do something like that, your movie better have, make a statement about it. I think Irreversible is a great example of demystifying rape and while Irreversible, some people would argue it's not a horror film because there's nothing supernatural in it. It's a thriller, but it comes real close to the line, and it's the most abusive, horrible scene I've ever seen. And because the film is structured the way it is, it's not a movie where it becomes a revenge fantasy and it washes clean of the sin of the rape in the middle of the film. Because the film goes backwards, you feel that rape the rest of the movie. You walk out of that theater, you're still feeling that on your skin. And so I think if you're gonna tell stories that have this kind of incendiary stuff, you as a filmmaker are responsible for at least trying to make a statement about it, to make the world a better place, rather than just glorifying the sickness of it. So that's a discussion I would have with my cast while we're workshopping the script.
Wonderful, I appreciate that. As an academic, what drew me into horror was dealing with the difficult subjects and the social commentary. What we can talk about in horror that we can't necessarily talk about as easily with a drama or a rom-com or a whatever else they play. I don't know, I don't watch most of it anymore. When we can dissect the horrible stuff, we look at George Romero's Day of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead. We had an African-American male lead hero, and that was still taboo at that time. Dan, I know quite a bit about the background of your story because you and I have done some interviews together. Could you explain some more about Pigman, because yours deals with difficult stuff and children? Oh, that's where it starts to get heart-wrenching there.
I don't want to give a lot of spoilers. Since it's
I will. It's brilliant. Go see it.
We have a child that dies during the course of the film, and in the short story, we also killed the dog, which you lose a lot of friends when you do that. But it was a really rough moment when I don't show the murder, but I show the aftermath of the father who is covered in his son's blood. And to do that for the special effects application, we laid his son down, didn't tell him what we were doing, and I just said, can you pick him up so I can see where to put the glue, all over him. And so he did that, and I thought he was going to be in here, but he's not, so I can talk about him too. Okay, and afterwards, me and Alka and I, he's the actor, looked at each other and I was like, that was really rough, I'm sorry about that. I think the object is you absolutely don't ever want to glorify anything like that, ever. I mean, don't let it happen on the set while you're filming it. Keep that shit in check. And make sure when it goes to the editing screen that it says what you want it to say. Anyway, the punchline, if there is one to this story, is the dog lives in the film. So. I couldn't kill them both.
Thank you, Dan. I know that was kind of tricky, and I appreciate it. There's also the topic of just brutal murder. And we've got some people here that have dealt with slasher films, which specialize in brutal, bloody, the bloodier the better murder. So how about we get some people to start to jump in on that, and then we're going to talk about some dealing with horror, the nasty stuff, and the budget, just to make it even more sticky and constraining.
you know, when you're tackling death scenes and any type of injuries, it's always, I always feel it's a discussion with your effects department, because ultimately this is their time to shine. And so they want to present something in the screen that no one's ever seen before, and you can have films that are more like on the hatchet side, which have a lot of fun, get really big and gory. And then there's stuff which I really take to, which is stuff like Blue Ruin and Green Room, like Jeremy Solomon's work, where he really goes into, we think about films from the 80s and back in the day, it was just bang, you're dead. And it's, what I like about those films, what he does, it's bang, you're still alive for another 3 hours suffering with this bullet in your stomach, and you have to figure out what to do. And that was like a big thing about Never Hike Alone, was taking the dichotomy of a Friday the 13th and not having just one event kill our character, but continually injure him and see him being, you know, hurt and more hurt and suffering through the pain, sewing his own wounds, doing those things that make people understand that these films are about a struggle and survival sometimes. And so you can get into that. But when you get into the glorifying of it, you kind of have to play this balance of what kind of film are you going to make. Are you making a story? Are you telling a story and then using something, you know, for your effects artists to kind of jump on, or are you just making a film about kills and then the story's not there? And I think when films glorify kills without putting a story through it is when they get, it's not really about, you know, the filmmaking and storytelling anymore, it's just a showcase for effects. And those can be fun sometimes in certain situations, but I usually tend to always lean on let story drive it, and then however big your budget is or however creative you can get, push the envelope and make people squirm in their seats.
Wonderful, wonderful. I appreciate that. Colin has done some different types of horror, including a really cute cartoon.
Yes, the film I have playing here at the Horrorhound Film Festival is an animated short film about a cat on Halloween night, but I've also done some slasher films in college. One of them is The Masked Phantom, which you can find on YouTube. It's about this girl who becomes a masked serial killer, and she goes killing her teacher, her boyfriend, and her boyfriend's new lover out of revenge. And I think like the main drawing with like when you show a murder scene, it's like there needs to be a happy medium in between of like gratuitous murder where you just start killing people nonstop with all this blood and gore and guts. It's just so unrealistic. But then you don't want to be hyper-realistic either, where it just becomes too real. It's like you can't even watch it. There has to be a happy medium there, in which the killing isn't so severe that you're like feeling like you're watching like a hyper-reality, but also not like to the point where you like turn someone's death into just like entertainment. There has to be a happy medium there, because you got to show the seriousness of the death, but also there has to be an element of excitement and entertainment in there as well.
Yes, excitement and entertainment. And I'm working on a book about my favorite blood recipes. I like it gory. Now, speaking of gory, now you've got to deal with a budget, and while corn syrup, my favorite ingredient for making blood, is pretty cheap, it does add up over a while. Now, Strange Tales from Appalachia was done on a micro budget. So maybe our friend there can jump in and talk about dealing with these difficult things and not having any money to pay people off with pizza. Which pizza goes a long way.
Yeah, we did Strange Tales for like $5,000, and it's a feature-length film. And it's it's not because we were trying to make a movie for as cheap as we possibly could. We just didn't have the money to make the movie. But having said that, we kind of, I live and die by the attitude of my cast and crew. And for this movie, I really knew that in order to get any kind of, recognition, or just to get the movie out there, I would have to have those specific elements. Echo the point that was made earlier. There's got to be some nudity in there. There's got to be blood and guts. There's got to be certain things to make it a horror movie. So that was really it's very tough to deal with when you know that, I mean, I'm sure on much bigger budget movies, you're still, you have to, there's sensitivities involved with actors and all that stuff. But on on a no budget movie, anybody could just walk off at any moment if they get, mad at you for it. But again, at our little no budget level, it's kind of the same thing. I felt myself being a little bit more embarrassed than the actors. I think when it comes down to it, you can't answer, the question of, dealing with actors' sensitivities and stuff like that on a specific, you can't answer that specifically because everybody's different. But, actors are actors. They want to do this and they really, are passionate about it at every budget level, I think, so.
I appreciate that, and you're getting next to our friends here that did the exploitation documentary. And exploitation is related to, and sometimes the stepbrother of, and sometimes the cousin of, or whatever, of horror. The two of them go together quite often. So what did you guys see when you were doing your research for Film Freaks?
Well, I mean, we focused a lot on stuff in the 70s, and exploitation can kind of be a really general cover, a number of genres. But we looked at a lot of the horror films from that time period, and this kind of dates back to a lot of the stuff you said early on about, a lot of those directors didn't, first-time filmmakers, guys that are just shoestring budgets, whatever they can do to make these movies. So guys like Braden Clark and William Sachs, these guys that are had these big aspirations, but they set expectations. I feel like a lot of this stuff goes back to, you set the right expectations with your cast and your crew, and don't dump a lot of big major surprises on them, you're gonna have a much more enjoyable experience for everyone involved. So you take a look at a film like I Spit on Your Grave. Camilla King puts on a performance in that is, one of the greatest I feel ever put to film. In general, not even just horror films, the poor woman gets raped 7 times in the film, and they're all very graphic and are parts that are extraordinarily uncomfortable. But they set the expectation that that's what the film was, and it's a rape revenge film. And so, there is another side to that. It's much like with Irreversible, you guys mentioned, is you need that stuff to set that expectation. So it's the same today, whereas if you were honest with people and you're making, a crazy, slasher film, or whether you're doing something that's, arty, that has, weird nudity and all these things that are parts of what they're supposed to be, it makes it easier for everyone involved because they know what they're getting into. It's not like they're showing up on set and they're like, oh, by the way, you have 3 nude scenes you have to do today. They're going to sign on for a project and know what they're getting into. And unfortunately, it's not like that for every filmmaker. There's filmmakers out there that don't necessarily set that expectation and put people into positions that they shouldn't be putting in the first place. So I think the responsibility falls on us as the people behind the projects to make sure that we're setting that expectation properly.
Fantastic.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, jump on that.
The other part of this, and again, because it is a bunch of white dudes talking about this, I actually think the most important thing we can do from our vantage point is, look, when we write a script and we cast, that cast knows what's in that script. There's no surprises, okay? Or at least there shouldn't be. If that actor signs on for that, then that's the job that they signed on to be a part of. Here's the problem. It's not what happens in front of the camera that's the problem, especially with white dudes in the business. The problem is the way we behave when the camera's turned off. And that's the thing.
Behind the camera.
Yeah, that's the stuff that, that's what's not okay. I mean, when we talk about, look, I think everything in front of the camera should be totally allowed. Okay? People are either going to go, that's cool, or that's not cool, and they're going to vote with their money and their tickets and their time. But what we don't have a right to do is behave in a way that makes anyone on a set feel uncomfortable in any way as a human being. As an actor, you're doing a job, you know it's what it entails. And by the way, there are some times when an actor gets really shook up because you're really in the scene and you have to talk them through that and work it out. That's great, and that's part of the job. What's not part of the job is when some producer or director, by the way, it's never the writer because they have no power. When a director or producer acts like it's their personal hunting ground, to treat these people like, well, if you want more lines, honey, I mean, you gotta be kidding me, man. And honestly, you know, the cavalcade of people that are now falling behind the Me Too movement and behind other things that are happening, good. Like, it's enough. I've watched people behave that way on set, not my sets, because they'd be fired instantaneously. But I mean, my wife and I work for Kevin Spacey. I mean, we've been in the trenches, and it's all, what you're hearing, it happens, guys. It just does. So, and by the way, sometimes it's your favorite person in the business who's doing this. And that sucks, that's awful, but you have to be able to separate the fandom from the fact that that person's a bad person. So I think that's the thing that we as white men can actually talk to the other white men and go, cut it out, and actually watch out for when it happens, and call it out when it happens, because that's the part of this that I think is, it's not what we put in front of the lens, it's what's happening behind it.
I have a whole notebook full because this is a lot of what I do. But what about you guys? Do you guys have any questions? Do you have any topics? Do you have anything that you'd like to bring up? Because all of this, we're here for you. It's the horror fan who we're doing all of this stuff for. Questions? You can wave at me. I can throw a microphone to you. You can write it on a note and throw it to me. I'll read it for you if you're shy. Yes, my friend, stand up.
How do you bring a character like Jason? How would you add to that story with your own? Do you approach the people on the rights of that character and say, "Hey, we got this idea for Jason"? I mean, how did that happen? Because I mean, obviously, this was Jason. I mean, he's already established. He's a legend already. Yeah. And then you come in with this story. Or how did that work?
The way it worked was I was 21 when I got hired to write and direct Jason Goes to Hell. I didn't shoot the movie until I was 24. I'm sorry, 23. It was 23 when I shot it. And what happened was I had set up, I had won Best Picture at NYU for a short film that I had made. I had been doing theater for most of my life, but I knew Sean Cunningham since I was 8 years old. And so when my film won all these awards, he called me out to LA, quote unquote, said, "Come and be my bitch for a year, and I will give you your shot to direct." And in that time, I set up another movie for him at Disney as a producer. And so he came to me with the 9th Friday the 13th film and said, quote unquote, I know he's said this isn't true, it's true. He said to me, he said, "Get that goddamn hockey mask out of the movie and I'll let you write and direct it." What he said. And so I said, the hockey mask? You want what? Oh, okay. And 3 days later, I came back with what was a treatment for Jason Goes to Hell. And the reason that we did so much kind of manipulation with the character and the mythology was that all we owned at New Line was the Jason character and Camp Crystal Lake. So that's what I had to work with. So I was always bothered that Jason is a 30-year-old dead kid in a lake who pops up at the end of the movie, of the first movie, and he's still a little kid at the bottom of the lake. I was like, okay, so he's magical and he's aquatic. And then 3 weeks later, in part 2, he murders Alice. Somehow he's found a way to grow 2 feet, learned how to drive a car, found a full new suit of clothes, and has brought his mom's head with him to put in the fridge. And then he brings Alice's body back to the camp so that a couple years later, when part 2, the rest of part 2 happens, he's all set up. I was like, Okay, guys, you're jumping the shark all over the place in this thing. Then it's a zombie. I mean, come on. So that's why the Necronomicon was buried in the movie. So it gave me some context as a filmmaker, and we didn't own the rights to Evil Dead. So I slipped that stuff in because Sam Raimi gave me the Book of the Dead and the dagger. And that's how I was able to kind of fudge that. What's fascinating now, because the rights are so screwed. I mean, guys, look, everybody can wait for a new Friday the 13th film. You have to wait a long time, because the rights are in trouble. And don't get mad at Victor Miller for the rights. Don't get mad at the writer. He should have had a piece of that from the beginning. But what I think is amazing about this and other franchises is that now it can live in what is happening in fan films. And guys, seriously, and it's not because this dude happened to be on the panel with me, because that's, I am telling you flat out, this is the best fan film I've seen in the Friday the 13th genre. So it's people being able to take the mantle of that character now without rights and go, you know what, the fans still want stories about this guy. You know, if I had my druthers, the movie that I would kill to make is, you know, bring Creighton Duke back with a back brace on. By the way, Creighton Duke is coming back. We are making a film about him. Not a fan film, a film. But I would bring Creighton Duke and 7 of the biggest badasses and go after Jason Predator style. That's a movie I'd make now.
That would be a lot of fun.
Right.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Do we have any more audience questions, particularly dealing with difficult subject stuff? Stuart, stand up, let's hear it.
I just have a question for you. You say about pushing the envelope as filmmakers when making these horror films. Where do you look for inspiration to find things to push the envelope with, be that a death or something controversial? Where are you looking for these nuggets of inspiration?
Well, real life's a pretty good place to start. I think that you just throw a stone and you can hear a story. I think for me, when I was growing up, I grew up in Massachusetts, so we kind of have a nice ghostly history in that state. We, have Salem and things like that. And you'd always hear the ghost stories about the abandoned house down the road. And where things go is once you research something or you hear a story, you let your imagination run wild with it. And I think as kids, our imaginations go nuts. I mean, we can barely walk to the bathroom in the middle of the night after watching a horror movie because we think that Michael Myers is waiting on the toilet for us. And those are the things that happen. And I think once you let those fears kind of seep into you and you start to not become afraid of them, or you hear someone's story of struggle and survival, or you hear a tale of something that's just awful, within all of the nastiness and things that we do on the screen that ultimately makes it a horror film, at the core of it is a story. And that's why I always harken back to that. It's the story of a character that's going through a situation. And, at the time you might think it's something about you, or you might think it's about something about your friend, or a story you heard that had an effect on you. But once you make these films and you release them out into the world, you start to realize how many people have similar experiences or have similar feelings. In Never Hike Alone, that I would have people come up to me, and I wouldn't even think about it in the film, but I won't spoil anything, but there's a part where he's kind of like strapped down, and I had someone come up to me and go, "That's my biggest fear. My biggest fear is being strapped down into something and having no control." And that scene really, really freaked me out. And I didn't think about it from that perspective of that could be someone's phobia. And those are the things that you kind of learn as you make film, how it impacts people, and those interactions with fans and those interactions with people who now, social media, they make comments and things like that. There are things in your film you didn't even realize were going to be as impactful as they were. And those are where you can really push the envelope. When you hear somebody say something about something and then they tell you their story, it almost gives you 20 more ideas of how you could have made it even worse for them. And that's part of the entertainment value. I mean, we go into film, no matter what genre it is, we go in because we seek an emotion. With a comedy, we seek happiness and laughter. If it's a romantic film, we seek love. And in horror, we seek fear because all of us have this sick, twisted thing in us where we like to be afraid. We like to have fear, but then we like to walk out of the theater, unlike most of the characters in the film. So I think that as a horror filmmaker, your challenge is to make people shudder in their seats, push them as far as you can to the envelope without, breaking the rules, and then have them walk out of it feeling like, I survived. I survived that movie, and I can do that. So I think that that's kind of like where you kind of paint your target and shoot for it.
You know, I think that horror has more to it than just fear, though. There's some restitution. There's some dealing with and getting closure through a horror film that you can't get in real life for whatever reason. There's some bravery that comes with it. There's courage. There's determination. And now, I may be biased, I probably am, but I've never felt those types of things from a rom-com. I've never walked out of there feeling like, okay, I can do this, whatever this is. So there's quite a bit of power that we hold and that we give to our audience and empower our audience with horror.
But I think to your point earlier, let's say about Night of the Living Dead, what I think horror's greatest strength is that at the end of Night of the Living Dead, there's no sense of like freedom, accomplishment, we won. I mean, he makes such a statement about civil rights in the last moment of that film. I mean, that ending credit sequence, when Ben is put onto the pyre, and he's not a zombie, and he's killed because he's the other in the window. That's what I love about it. My favorite horror films are the ones that I walk out of the theater and I don't feel good. I feel like, oh man, I just got rocked. Even something like The Exorcist, where like, she's not possessed anymore. I'm still going, yeah, but that priest, man, like, he got possessed and killed himself to save her. And that's, I think we leave a little bit of scar, but I think it's a really healthy scar. I think the best horror movies actually leave us with something where we're like, I feel like that's where we get to grow a little bit from, and it's also why I think horror fans are truly the coolest people in the world, because we actually accept those nightmares in, and I think we evolve more than people who just live by rom-coms. Mm-hmm. You know, we're willing to face the scary stuff, not just the fear stuff, but the messages behind a lot of these movies. And I think it's why, I mean, the best conversations I have are people who love horror movies.
Well, you get a closure in real life from that fiction that you've seen on the screen. And there's also a sense of no longer being alone because there's other people that understand you. If you were the weird kid in school, for whatever kind of weird you were, nerdy, geeky, whatever, most of us were. And so now we have a family and we have a camaraderie. The stuff that you can't get over in real life because you're not allowed, you were talking about the, I Spit on Your Grave. That's horrible, graphic, disgusting, filthy fucking stuff, people. But it's real, it actually happens. And how often whoever the victim is, male, female, other, is told by the attorney, by the police, by the parents, by the whoever, by society, by the whatever in society, that there's nothing that can be done. Or if they do bring all of that forward and have to face society's critical eye, they're still feeling so horrible from it. But when we watch that film, yes, the terrible thing happens to her, but then she turns it around. And there was some justice, and there was some satisfaction. And so we can take away a little bit of that with her. And even though it's fictional, that still helps us to get up the next morning. I like Adam Sandler, but I never felt anything like that from any of his flicks, you know? Sorry, but do we have any more audience questions before we go on here? Yes. Okay. The lovely lady with the black shirt, and then the gentleman with the red shirt. Was there anyone else? Okay, you too. Yes, ma'am?
I don't actually have a question per se, but being a woman in the business making horror films, I want to say that I totally agree with you as far as this genre, especially as empowering for women. Because you can say, yes, there's a horrible rape or there's a horrible something that happens, but how your lead character, which is almost always a female,
Survivor
And I gotta
girls.
say, I love the Final Guy too, but they get to rise above all those circumstances and all of that pain and prove that they're strong enough. And I think they beat Jason. They beat the archetypes of evil.
Right. Nancy beat Freddie.
Exactly, and I think that empowers young women. And I think it's a shame that I talked to so many women who are like, oh, I can't watch, oh no, it's just too much. And I want to say, no, you need to watch this. You need to watch this. And one of the things that we work on a lot in our filmmaking is also inclusion of gay characters, older women, younger men, people of color.
People of size.
People of size. All of those things are important, and I think all of us, white men on the panel, can really be thinking about opening up your thinking as far as your cast and who you are writing for, because it doesn't have to be teenagers. It can include everyone.
Right. That's,
Can I just
yes.
something on that? I think what's so amazing about independent filmmaking, especially right now, is that anybody can do virtually anything they want. You have, white male filmmakers, but there's so many amazing female filmmakers out there now. You look at like the Soska sisters and like what they've been able to do, and even going back like stuff like Sorority House Massacre was female, correct? So like now it's okay to have gay characters. It's okay to have, anything you want to put in these movies. There's like, you talked about the first gay kiss. That's commonplace now. Like it's not even a thing anymore. Nobody brings it up because it's accepted. So when you see those stories of like bad things going on sets and like, all the Me Too stuff, it's disheartening because there's such a large group of people out there that are so open to so many different things that it's just a bummer to know that there's still people that think like that are just like, I don't want to see a gay kissing movie. Well, why not? That's life. That's how it is every day. So I think that's what's so important about supporting independent film now is because we have the ability to make movies on our phones and just like do all of these things you never in a million years would have had access to. And it's only going to get bigger and better as long as people continue to support it.
Exactly. We've had some stuff submitted to the festival from an iPhone. I can't remember which ones got in, which ones didn't, and sometimes they don't get in, not because they're not good.
Some of ours is on my phone.
Yeah, wonderful. Sometimes we just don't have space for it. But yeah, there's so many tools out there that are free or nearly free, editing software and that sort of thing that just, shut Facebook, as fun as it can be, and go ahead and pick up notes and write your own damn film. The gentleman with the red shirt, you had a question, sir?
Never Hike Alone, like me as a fan, I've been desperate for something Friday the 13th for so long, and what you guys done was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Thank you. I mean, just to kind of talk about something there, and he asked a question before, which Adam answered brilliantly, but when you're talking about like, you can pretty much do anything now. The technology's out there, there's a range of cameras you can use, there's a range of things you can use, and the great thing about, YouTube and Vimeo and sites where you can post your stuff is, the other part is you can just work within your own constraints. It doesn't have to be, before if you were trying to get into stuff, you could do shorts, you could do half hour, you could do an hour. You can get it out there and you can work with it. And the nice thing is, cosplay is out there. And if you have a passion about something, if you have a passion about a franchise, which is where it came from for me. I mean, Never Hike Alone, that guy will tell you, started as, a 5-minute short that just got out of control. And, a year and a half later,
Too short, I wanted more.
if we had more money, we would have made it way longer. But we stretched every. But the thing is it no matter what it is, whether it's a fan film or it's original short or any of that, it's always a great testament because every time you make a film, it's a test. And I think that you have to allow yourself to fail on all levels. I think that a lot of the things that we've learned as filmmakers are things because we've gone through the process and we've made a ton of mistakes. And I know I made a ton of mistakes and Never Hike Alone, but through those mistakes, we learned a lot and got better. And I think that, on the subject that we talk about, you know, it's kind of like the comedians. Like, comedians are out here to tell jokes, and sometimes they tell a joke that's off color, sometimes they go too far, but that's their job. And I think the responsibility isn't not to tell the jokes that go too far, just recognize when you do and know how to course correct as you're going forward. Right now I have the privilege to work on a TV show with the director of photography. His name's Alan Caso, C-A-S-O, and I implore everybody to research on YouTube and Vimeo Alan Caso's Lifetime Achievement Award acceptance speech for the ASC, where he talked about, you know, there's things you can do as far as, like, you know, you can hashtag #MeToo, you can change your profile pic on Facebook. What really matters is when you get out on set and you lead and you take charge and you become the change that you talk about. And that's, to me, the most important thing you can do. And Alan, when he gave this speech, it was amazing when I watched it and I realized who I was working for, was he told a story about, you know, up and coming. Every time he looked around at one of his film sets, especially when the Me Too movement started happening, he was like, wow, I have a bunch of frat dudes out here. They're all white guys who look like me. And he said, moving forward, I will no longer do that. And right now, the camera crew that he has 2 lead female operators, 2 ACs that are female. His lead AC is a female. The people on his staff are people of color. I think he has 1 white guy working for him. And he said, you know, everything I do after, I'm just going to find the people who I think need that push, who need us, who are in the, you know, position of power, who've been doing this a long time, and we've been sort of entitled into it, to then pass that torch. His second unit director is an African-American female, who's amazing. And I think that it's giving people the opportunity to shine and opening the doors for when, you know, sometimes we're making films and we just make them with our friends. And through who we know, it's kind of there. But when you start to go out to different film festivals and you start to see other filmmakers and you start to crossbreed your teams with other teams, it's always great to kind of open that door up and try something new that you haven't tried before. So I've been kind of a word of advice that I would say.
To that point, on Jason Goes to Hell, and again, this is 1992 when we made the movie. It was the first white directed movie that had a black DP for major studios. First time it ever happened, and my DP was a guy named Bill Dill, who's a genius, and I didn't care what color he was, I looked at his work. And when he came to the door, I wasn't surprised. I was like, awesome, let's talk about movies, man. And so, none of that ever should play a factor at all. It just, how good are they at the job? It's all that matter.
And the more diversity on set and behind the camera, the better the film is going to be, because you're going to have more perspectives. Jeremiah Kipp did a film called Black Wake not very long ago. The lead character was supposed to be a white dude. He lobbied for a Hispanic female to play that doctor role. I'm a Hispanic female doctor. I never get to see myself or something that looks like me as the lead. There was another one, that we showed last year. There were plenty of well-done consensual nude scenes with people of different colors and different sizes. So then the people on camera look like the audience, and we can relate, and we can build a stronger bond together. I know you had a question. Was there any other questions? Go ahead and stand up, Mark.
As you can see, I'm a white news filmmaker, so I know this whole battle between good and bad on the camera, and I also know it as a horror film. There is also that battle of good and bad filmmaking, because there are sadly lots of people that just want to shock. So like you're saying, the balance between story and just doing it for the sake of it sometimes wavers in the balance. Have you got any advice for young filmmakers? That one might scare someone or something like that. It's a sensitive topic, but it's great. Do you have any advice for them before they tackle that? To make sure that they do an honest truth thing that doesn't, once again, turn into a bad horror filmmaker or just bad horror.
Be authentic. I mean, and honestly, that's for any filmmaker. If you're authentic, you're always going to offend somebody. I mean, the movie that we showed last night, Secret Santa, I announced the movie and said, everyone in this room will be offended at some point during this movie. If they aren't, I didn't do my job. Like, I want you to be offended, but what does that make you feel? And if I'm honest about the offense, if I'm talking about people who do terrible things, you should feel really badly about those people. Great, you're offended at the thing that I want you to be offended by. So horror should be outrageous, and it should move us to be like shocked and, oh my God, they did that. Yeah, but the whole point is, if someone's doing it to titillate you, that's where they're wrong. If they're doing it to, yes, excite, absolutely, but also to get you to think a little bit. And I think if a filmmaker is authentic, I don't care what gender, what color, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just be authentic, tell the story in a true way, in a real way, and you're safe. You are. You're always gonna have people who hate you. You're always gonna have people who are critical, always. If you're in the business and think that everyone's gonna love you, get out of the business, because it doesn't exist. It just doesn't.
I think just to point on that, because since we've done the documentary about cult, I mean, looking back all the way, I mean, all the movies that have the longevity, the cult films, the horror films, there is a large overlap between cult and horror. Those films that have the longevity that we still celebrate here come from an honest perspective. So it's like you answered your own question right at the end there. You said being authentic and being honest, like that is key. That's absolutely key, and that sounds very just broad, like that's super just like one note, but that's the truth of it. Like, you know, we went into the doc with an honest perspective. Every person who we talked to had a film, and then the ones that had films that flopped, that weren't cult films, they talked about, they did it for a paycheck, and that's a part of the aspect too. So it's like, it depends on what you want out of it, and I think that honesty makes an everlasting film, and then a paycheck makes a film. So it's like, either way you get to make a film, which is awesome, but it depends on what you want out of it, and I think that's the biggest part of it, for that we found, talking to people from various generations and various backgrounds in our documentary.
Something that I've noticed being a reviewer, and I watch probably about, I think we watched about 200 films, independent horror films for this session. Do that twice a year, so, you know, 350 to 450 films per year, independent stuff. Be unique, be authentic, but don't go for a standard trope. Give it a unique spin. Whatever that weird thing is that's in your head that you're like, oh, I can't let that out, let that out. Do that. Make it stand out so that later when I'm trying to have a conversation about film, I'm searching for the name of your film to bring it up. By the way, it was Theta Girl that had the varied cast, different sizes, different colors, different all this sort of thing. So it was a little more real. So that's what I would go with, is make it stand out to me. Because I'm going to watch 400 of these things. I remember 20 of them. Make yours one of those 20. Okay, do we have anything else before we get ushered out of here? Well, ladies and gentlemen, here and at home, humans of various genders and nationalities and things, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for giving us your input and your insight and your support. We appreciate you. And gentlemen, even though you're white dudes, we still love you, okay? We do.